On June 9th, 2023, a 23-year-old Russian man named Vladimir Popov was at a beach with his father Yuri at a place called Hurghada, which is in Egypt on the Red Sea. The two had reportedly moved there a few months prior to avoid the possibility that Vladimir might get drafted and have to go fight in the war against Ukraine. This decision, however, would lead to a fate that was arguably much more terrifying than having to go fight in a war. On that day, on the 9th, it was very overcast, but the weather was warm and the water was perfect. It was flat, it was clear, and it was nice enough that at some point Vladimir decided he was going to go for a swim and cool off. His father decided not to join him. So Vladimir goes out, and he was far from the only one in the water. There were dozens of people in the water, but he did swim out a little bit further than the rest of the beachgoers. He was about 50 meters from shore, that's about 165 feet, and he was about 20 meters off from this jetty that goes out into the water. 20 meters is about 65 feet. And as he was swimming around, at some point, he would have heard the sound of people screaming at him. We know this because on CCTV footage or security footage, we can see him stop and start looking around. Now, he may not have known what they were screaming, but what the people on the beach and on the jetty were screaming was, "Get out of the water, shark," because they could see the fin of a 3-meter long or 10-foot long tiger shark going directly for Vladimir. Now, he at some point did turn and see this fin and began to try to swim to shore. But by that time, it was already too late and the thing was on top of him. It went under the water and grabbed him. And we don't know where it grabbed him by. It could have been the torso or the thigh or even the lower arm. You can't see that. But it starts pushing him through the water and just thrashing him around and pulling him under repeatedly. Now, at this point, after it strikes him, people on the beach immediately pull out their phones. There's several different videos of this, different angles, but the most famous one starts, and he's already been attacked. There's blood just surrounding him all over, just saturating the water around him. He's not screaming at this point, but that's probably because he's being drugged under repeatedly, so he's probably trying to catch his breath. And this goes on for 20 seconds that this shark just mauls him viciously. At one point, it flips him completely upside down, so his body is completely under the water, but his legs are just sticking up in the air vertically, and it's just thrashing him all over the place. It's the most violent shark attack I personally have ever seen, and I don't recommend that you watch the video if you haven't seen it. But after about 20 seconds, the shark lets him go, and this is when, tragically, you hear him start to scream. His head is above water. He's not moving very much, but he's screaming for his father. He's screaming, "Papa, Papa, save me!" And you can hear this clearly, and people on the beach are screaming. There's music in the background, but even over that, you can hear him screaming for his father to please come save him. But the shark did not let him go for very long. It was about 8 seconds, and the shark goes behind him and circles around. And then from Vladimir's left side, your right side as you're looking at the video, but from his left side looking into the beach, it comes up out of the water and grabs him by what looks to be like his neck shoulder area. And it keeps him on the surface for about another 8 or 9 seconds as Vladimir is still screaming. And it's thrashing him around before it forces him under the water. The tailed shark comes up out of the water, and the tail just starts violently thrashing back and forth. So you know that it was using its head to just kind of rip him apart underwater. Now, his father, Yuri, is obviously watching this from the shore, unable to do anything. And so is everybody else filming, but there's people who got on boats as soon as this attack started, and they started making their way over to him. But again, this was about a minute-long attack, and by the time the boat pulls up right next to him, it is just as that shark's tail is thrashing, and it takes him under the water, and you don't see Vladimir again. Now, the shark stayed in the area for the next 2 hours, kind of playing with the body and consuming parts of Vladimir, and they were able to get fishermen out there, and they actually caught this thing with nets, and they brought it into shore. They beat it to death with pipes and crowbars and pieces of wood. Reports initially said that Yuri, his father, participated in this. However, this was not verified, so it's probably just media trying to kind of make the case more exciting. But anyways, these people took revenge on this thing. They beat it to death. They did a necropsy on it where inside the shark they found Vladimir's head, portions of his limbs, his hand, portions of his torso, most of him. And the rest of him, authorities were able to recover, at least most of the rest of him, they were able to recover from the water. He was cremated and his remains were sent back to Russia. The shark, in true Egyptian fashion, was mummified or is in the process of being mummified, and it will be on display in a museum there in Egypt.